Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be going over everything that I wish that I knew before I bought one of these Ineos Grenadiers. Before we get into this video though, I do want to mention a couple things. First off, as always, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And I know some people are going to be asking about my eyes because they look horrible right now. I'm allergic to grass. It's the stupidest allergy on the planet, but I am, and I mowed the lawn today, and so yeah, the grass always fights back. Anyways, let's get into it. So the first thing that I would have liked to have known is the whole dealer network situation. A lot of new automakers in the US market are choosing to do direct-to-consumer sales. You know, Tesla's done that for years. You've got Rivian, you've got Lucid. And so Ineos being a new automaker, relatively niche, you know, it's not going to be huge in terms of volume, I assume. You think that they would do the direct-to-consumer route and just have distribution centers. That's not the case. They went the traditional route and decided to sell things through dealerships. Now, I know there's a lot of people are going to say that they hate dealerships, yada, yada, yada. I'll let you argue about that in the comment section below. The thing that I really like about this is the fact that that means that the dealer network is able to expand a lot faster than what you'd see if they tried to build it out themselves, right? Because they're not having to spend their capital for the infrastructure associated with selling these cars and with servicing these vehicles. I mean, for example, Utah's not a very big state, not a very big market, but we have an Ineos dealer over in West Valley. That's where I bought this one from. And so I'm only about an hour away from the dealership in terms of getting this serviced. Now, that's not as close as, you know, if I bought a Ford or a Toyota, for example. Those are like 20 minutes away from where I live. But that's a lot better than, I remember Lucid, when they released their first car, the Lucid Air. To get that car serviced, you had to send it back to Seattle or whatever, which, yeah, I mean, shipping your car across the country to get serviced, that's not exactly fun. So, yeah, I would have liked to know that they had a dealer network, but maybe I'm just live under a rock, and that's why I didn't know. The number two thing that I would have liked to have known like 2 years ago when this was announced is the parts that it actually uses. A lot of, you know, initial reviews and everything just said, hey, new company, new car, and they didn't focus too much on the parts. And I think the parts are what make this. So this was developed with Magna. Do your own research on Magna, huge company. But it has a lot of name brand stuff. You can see like BF Goodrich for the tires. It's got Bilstein shocks. It's got iBox springs. And, you know, the thing that's funny, and I think it's funny, it's been controversial, is the engine, which I think is super weird because it's a really good engine. It's got BMW's B58 engine. It's a turbocharged 3-liter inline-6, extremely reliable. Again, do your own research on this engine, but people have like 800 horsepower with this powertrain in Supras and stuff relatively reliably. And so this thing only pushing 282 horsepower, it is not under any stress whatsoever. But yeah, had I known this had as many quality parts as it does, and did you hear how like solid that sound was with the hood closing? It's a well-built vehicle. I would have ordered one of these probably 2 years ago, but again, I know Ineos did a good job, but I feel like the car reviewers didn't do a good job of emphasizing that. Now, the number three thing that's a little bit of a negative is the add-ons. There are certain things on the Grenadier that come from the factory, and there are certain things that you can spec out on their configurator that don't actually come from the factory. An example of something that comes from the factory is the winch, which, by the way, if you don't get this from the factory right off the bat, then you can't get one unless you go for an aftermarket one, which apparently the aftermarket one, you have to replace this middle section to fit their winch. So there is that. But, you know, stuff like the checker plates, which I am adding on mine, you can add those on the configurator, but it's a dealer installed option. It's not something that it's shipped with from the factory. One that I got put on right off the bat was the rock rails. This is another thing that you put on the configurator, but it's a dealer installed option. So what that means is there's a little bit of cost to install it when it comes to labor. And so, yeah, that was another thing that I think that some people might get confused about. That would have been nice to know is what's a dealer installed option on this and what's not a dealer installed option. And while we're talking about options, the number four thing is how many options this thing has. It almost is too configurable, in my opinion. So the winch, for example, that's an option. Checker plates, I just talked about that. Wheels, you can get alloy wheels or steel wheels, right? Which one do you go for? Which tires do you go for? You know, steps, right? You can get rock rails, you can get steps, you can get neither if you want. And then inside, you've got the seats, right? That's configurable. Even the steering wheel. You've got the Safari windows that are configurable. You've got power that you can add or not add with it. And then, I mean, there's even little things like these little tie-down hooks. That's another thing that is an option with it. And so there's just so many options. It can get very, very confusing very quickly. And so that's another thing that I don't see it as a negative because it's super customizable, but also it's super customizable. And speaking of customizable, the number 5 thing is the colors. So since there are dealerships and you can see other vehicles in person, one of the things that's the most difficult things to choose on this is a color. This is one of the few vehicles that I feel like almost every single color looks good on it. The only color that I'm not too fond of is black. Sorry if you bought a black one, but it doesn't really look that good. But yeah, this one is kind of like a lighter metallic blue. They've got a bright blue that's non-metallic. They've got a really cool silver. They've got a green that looks great. They've got a tan that looks great. Even the white, like I usually don't like white cars, but even the white looks great. And then you have colored roof options as well. There's so many different colors, and all the colors, or most of the colors rather, look really good on this car. And so you kind of get, I guess, decision fatigue when you're choosing what color you should go for on the Grenadier. And so that's another thing that goes with that whole option side of things, is there's just so much to choose on this car. This leads us into the number 6 item, which is going to be insurance with the Grenadier. This is a brand new vehicle from a brand new company, and so a lot of insurance companies have no idea what this is whatsoever. And so a lot of companies won't insure the Grenadier, or they'll insure it at a ridiculously high premium. My advice on the insurance side of things is work with a local company. These, big insurance chains, the big national chains, a lot of the times they just care about money, and they go, okay, this is a weird car, weird manufacturer, it's not going to make us money, so we're just not going to insure it, or we want to charge you a bunch of money if you want us to insure it. Where the local companies, it seems like they're more customer centric. I mean, that's been my, personal experience. I work with Farm Bureau here in Utah, and I have my cars insured through them. I have my house insured through them. Again, not paid or anything. If they do want to sponsor me though, that would be cool. I'd be I'd be willing to do a Farm Bureau sponsorship on the channel. But anyways, local insurance companies that also, maybe insure different items, like Farm Bureau also does farms and stuff, and so they were more than willing to insure the Grenadier for me because they're used to insuring stranger items. And so, yeah, you might have to do a little bit of legwork to get it insured, but it's possible. I have mine insured, no problem. And this leads us to the number 7 item, which is going to be financing. Now, I personally did not finance my Grenadier. It just didn't make sense with my particular situation, but I know that some people are going to be financing these, and just like the insurance side of things, it might be difficult. Same advice applies. Typically the smaller banks, smaller credit unions can be a little bit easier to work with on something like this, right? If you've had your money with a local credit union for the last 10, 15 years, they're more likely to give you a loan on a strange vehicle like this rather than a big chain, or, if you haven't had your money with someone for some time. So again, it's always good to build those relationships with local branches and all of that kind of stuff. So that's my advice on that. Local might be more willing, but again, you might have to do a little bit of legwork. And I'm sure that the Ineos dealers, again, I don't have personal experience on this, but I am sure that the Ineos dealers, because they're, wanting to sell cars, are going to, have some advice in terms of financing, because they've already had customers come through that have financed these Grenadiers. And I can't do 2 hands, so we'll just do 5 plus 3 is 8. This is the final point, and that is availability with these Grenadiers. I did not order this Grenadier. This was a Grenadier that someone else ordered that they decided to back out on their order, and that's something that I don't think that people know, is that you can go into an Ineos dealer today and you can leave with a Grenadier today. Now, I know a lot of people are going to think, oh, well, if people are backing out, then there might be a problem with the car. Let me explain. Now, if you don't know, the Grenadiers that are arriving today were ordered over 2 years ago, and the car market has changed a massive amount in the last couple of years. Just over 2 years ago, interest rates were basically 0%. And so you could get a loan on one of these for free. And then on top of that, used car values were close to all-time highs. And so if you were trading in a car for a Grenadier, then you were going to get a stupid amount of money for your car. Now, fast forward today with these Grenadiers actually arriving, and the average interest rate on a new car is close to 10%. And then with used car values, they have declined so much in the last couple of years. And so the, financial situation that people thought they were in when they ordered one of these is completely different compared to when the car arrived. And so I think that finances are one of the biggest reasons as to why people are backing out of these orders. And then just general life changes. Like, I can tell you personally, just over 2 years ago, I was living in my mom's basement and did not own a house. And now 2 years later, I'm married, I have a kid, and I own a house. And so, like, the amount of stuff that can change in people's lives over 2 years is massive, and so we have huge economic changes, plus people probably had big life changes, and they realized that, yeah, the cool off-road vehicle that they really want, it made sense a couple years ago, but it might not make sense today. And so I don't think it's anything negative about the vehicle itself. I think it's more so about just how much has changed since the people first ordered these Grenadiers over 2 years ago. Now, hopefully that is helpful for all of you that are on the fence about whether or not you should get a Grenadier. I think that that should provide a lot of clarity on the vehicle, or at least, you know, initial stuff with the vehicle. Again, I'm going to have a whole series with the Grenadier. I'm really excited to see what this is all about. The next thing's going to be happening in these series is a couple things. So, or actually a few things. I'm getting paint protection film put on the Grenadier. That's something that I do with all of my vehicles. Window tint as well, because Utah is a very sunny state, and then the checker plates. And once all of that is done, which I think I can get all of that done by the end of next week, maybe a week after that, I'm going to be taking this off-road. I'm really excited. I'm not going to do anything like too hardcore initially because I got to get a feel for the vehicle and all of that. But yeah, that'll be the next thing after everything's all wrapped up. I will take it off-road and see how well it performs off-road. And so, yeah, I'll see you.